This might be the biggest blunder in my brief astrophotography career. So I really want to try to capture the International Space Station with my telescope. But the problem is the way most people do it is they release the clutch on their tripod and then they just kind of move it around in the sky while they're looking through the viewfinder and kind of manually track it on their tripod or on their mount. My problem is these Nexstar mounts don't have any way to release the clutch, as they say, so that this thing will move freely. And so there's no way to really track it. So I could take it off the mount and then just point it up at the sky like this. That actually might work, but I just feel like it's going to be too unstable. And the other thing is I want to also be able to see, since I'll be capturing the pictures through my astrophotography camera that's going into my laptop, I'd also like to be able to see the view of the laptop at the same time, just to see if I'm getting it in frame and to make sure it's the right brightness and focus and everything is right. So I've got a couple problems here to solve for. I think this crazy idea is going to start out with a trip to the hardware store to get some PVC pipe and some plywood. I'm also a little hampered by the fact that I've got an electronic focuser on here. So the first thing I'm going to have to do when I go out and try to capture the International Space Station is attach it to this mount, connect the focuser, get focus on presumably a star or the moon if it's out, and then detach everything and just hope that it stays in focus from that point. I'd also like some way to adjust things on the telescope in real time while I'm manually tracking the International Space Station, whether it's focus or brightness. So I need something that's going to hold the telescope, hold a laptop, and I'm going to be able to need to see both of them at the same time while looking through this viewfinder.
The PVC pipe forms the skeleton of this thing, and compressing this into a time-lapse doesn't really do justice to the amount of time this took. It needed to be the exact right size, so there was a lot of measuring and recutting that went into this. It ended up being several weekends of work, a few more trips to the hardware store, and at least a couple more Amazon orders. This piece of plywood is going to be the platform that everything sits on. I wanted to make sure it was a bit more friendly, so I did round out the corners and sanded all the edges and surfaces nice and smooth. And after a ton more measuring and fitting to make sure I could fit the telescope and the laptop on this platform, I started drilling to put it all together. These are the holes for the laptop clamps. I spent a ton of time figuring out exactly where the telescope mount should go because the viewfinder of the scope needed to line up exactly with my right eye, and I'll show you that in a minute. I did paint the wood flat black. As an astrophotographer, I'll say it was to reduce glare, but really it just looks cooler, and that's why I did it. I put that tape down so that I could see where to put all the mounts after I painted it, and here I'm just fastening down all of the laptop clamps, and you can see why I needed the tape so I could get that angle exactly right so that my laptop fits on there. And now it's time for the telescope mount. This might be the single most expensive part of this project, not including the telescope and laptop, of course. This was a $100 Amazon purchase. And the last step was to permanently affix the platform to the PVC skeleton. I did add some pads to the screw heads where my laptop would go so I didn't scratch up my laptop, and that's it.
Okay, this is pretty exciting. I am done with this. I'll put it all together in a minute, but I want to show you what I got here first. So this is a PVC structure that's going to fit over my shoulders. And then I've got a mount for the telescope here. And I've got these clamps that are going to clamp the laptop down. This here is a point of view camera mount so that you can look over my shoulder while I'm looking up at the sky. And then underneath here, this is a 2-button USB connection where I can control things in real time. When I'm looking up in the sky, I'm not gonna be able to mess with my computer. So I could configure this to do focus, or what I think I'm gonna do is configure this to do gain, so that as I'm looking up, if I see that the image in the computer is too bright, I can lower it, or if it's too dim, I can raise the gain so we can get a good picture. Okay, and here's the final product. We've got our telescope on the right side, we've got the laptop on the left side. Got our camera mounted on the upper left over my shoulder. And really that's it. It's really fastened down pretty securely because, you know, we got $1,500 worth of equipment on here, and I'm going to be lifting it above my head. I don't want anything falling off, and I want it to be super stable. I've been thinking about what to call this, and I think just to keep it short, we'll call it the Manual International Space Station Tracking and Capturing Platform. We'll just call it the Misstep for short. I think that's going to be fitting because I'm not sure if this might be the biggest blunder in my brief astrophotography career. Okay, so this thing is pretty heavy, but I'm in decent shape, so I should be able to lift it onto my shoulders. I'll show you how this is supposed to work. I'm not going to stand up because I'll come out of frame. Should be able to just lift it up like this over my shoulder. And then I've got it sized just perfectly so that that sight on my telescope is perfect on my right eye. Keep a view of the screen with my left eye, and then you can see these buttons here are going to be able to increase or decrease the brightness of my image in real time. And I'll just be tracking this through the sky all the way up and over. Just got to make sure when I set it down I don't damage anything. In about 10 minutes, the International Space Station is supposed to fly directly over our head. Now, right now, I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of clouds in the sky. It does happen to be clear-ish over my head. I can see a few stars, so I'm hoping that in 10 minutes, it's still gonna be this clear, and we can at least catch a couple images of the International Space Station. Totally cloud covered over my head. This is miserable. It's just gonna pop out at the last minute. What do we got? 10:16, we got 2 more minutes. Oh, there it is. It's coming that way. All right, I think I'm recording. There we go. There it is, I got it. Now, can we get it in the, I'm gonna turn the gain up. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of flash, I see it. Come on. It's right overhead right now, through the clouds. Ah! Oh! Oh! Wow. All right, well, that was it.
All right, here's all the pictures I got strung into a video, and this I'm calling a failure. You can tell this is more than a star, but you can't really tell it's the International Space Station. Here's one of my better still shots, but this is nowhere close to what I wanted. On to test number 2.
Nice and clear tonight. A little bit of cloud, one little cloud that might be in the way of it. But a much better night than last night. 9:24. Might not be able to see it for another minute. And this thing is really heavy, by the way, so as I'm trying to aim this thing, I'm grunting and groaning. I'm trying to force this thing around. I need to hit the weight room. There it goes. Yeah, that's it. Edit stop. God dang it. This thing is so heavy. What the heck? What the heck? I got too low. It's going away. All right, well, that was it.
So here are my images from test 2. I got 220 images as compared to the 60 on the first test. So I got better at keeping it stable. This is marginally better than test 1, but I clearly need to make some drastic improvements. So I do have a couple of ideas on those improvements, but before I get to that, this is what I'm calling my best image, and it's clearly not that good.
All right, I just got done setting up for what I hope is the final run at the International Space Station, because we're not gonna have a good pass again for another 3+ weeks. I'm not even sure I'm going to be around or if it's going to be clear. It's kind of a partly cloudy day. Right now it's really nice for the flyover, so I'm hoping that it stays like this for the next hour or so. So I've got 2 reasons for being hopeful about tonight. Based on the lessons learned on the previous 2 trials, I'm removing this 2.5 times Barlow lens, which really allowed me to zoom in really tightly to the International Space Station, but it also made it like I was trying to track the thing through a straw. To give you an idea of how narrow my field of view was, is with this lens in place, my field of view, what I was looking at in the sky was about 1/30th of the size of the full moon. So a very small area, and trying to keep the telescope lined up in that small of an area with the International Space Station was really hard. This also doesn't allow a lot of light in, so it requires me to have a longer exposure, which was causing some smearing in some of my images, even though I was able to go down to 2 milliseconds. So removing this, hopefully we'll be able to get down to a millisecond or half a millisecond and really get some sharper pictures. So this thing's gone. The downside is the International Space Station isn't going to be as big as it would be with this. But I'm gonna have to make that sacrifice. The other thing I discovered with those 2 trial runs is that 30 pounds on this platform is not that much, but after 3 or 4 minutes of holding it, it becomes a lot. And so when it was getting right above my head at the most crucial time, I was getting pretty shaky, starting to shake as I was trying to hold this thing. So what I did is I found the center of gravity of this and put a bracket in place, and then I've got another piece of PVC that I'm going to attach to this. It's going to be able to swivel around on the bottom, and the majority of the weight is going to sit on that PVC pipe, and then I'm just going to kind of swivel it around on top of it. So that should make it a lot more stable too. So the new stability platform adjustments plus the wider field of view without that extra lens in there, I'm really hopeful for tonight.
So this ended up being a really good night for capturing the ISS, but I made a serious mistake, which you're going to see in a second. So I'm not even going to take you through the capturing process. On the upside, as you can see, the stabilization PVC pipe offloaded the weight a ton, and this worked really well. I was able to keep the International Space Station in my viewfinder a lot more easily.
And this is why I should have a checklist. I just took all those pictures with my mask in front of the lens. So that is a wasted night.
So the mask I'm referring to is the piece of plastic that sits in the front of the telescope there that's got all of the lines on it. It's a focusing tool, but you're definitely supposed to take it off before you take any pictures. And I forgot. So the new stabilization helped a ton. I got a lot of footage, but as you can see, all of the pictures were really blurry. This was really disappointing because I think I would have had some pretty good shots in here had I not had that mask on my telescope.
Oh, there it is. Got it.
This attempt was pretty cool because it was basically daylight just before sunrise. It's really amazing how bright it was, but it was also really tough to see it in the viewfinder, and I knew it was going to be difficult to bring out any contrast in the pictures. I wasn't sure how good this had all turned out, so by the end of this, I was pretty frustrated.
I don't know. That was kind of weak. Well, that was a tough one because it's so bright out that it was super faint and it was hard to track. I think I'm really gonna have to do tomorrow morning to get a good one. Well, let's pack it up and see what I got.
As predicted, this was a tough one. A lot of this is too bright because I wasn't sure how to handle the daylight conditions, but I'm getting a ton better at tracking it through the sky. I got twice as many pictures as before. This is my best picture from the pass, and finally I'm getting somewhere. You can definitely make out the solar panels extending in the lower left and upper right, and the central mast. As you can see, I'm starting this image capture with the International Space Station directly overhead, and that's because my image capture software crashed right as the International Space Station appeared at the horizon. I had to put down the misstep, I had to restart the software, I had to redo setup, I had to pick the misstep back up and start the image capture. So I missed like the first half of the pass, but at least I got it when it was at its closest point directly overhead. So I ended up getting some pretty good shots. Now, this is what I was hoping for when I set out on this journey 3 months ago. Really, the only thing I can complain about here is that for some reason, NASA's got this thing configured where the solar panels aren't facing in the same direction, so the station kind of looks twisted. I've got to try one more time to see if I can get a pass without the twist.
Oh, it's already there. Good grief.
I was a little late in starting to capture the ISS, and it was already overhead, so I missed probably the first 20 or 30 seconds of the pass. But it was a nice clear night out, and the only issue was my neighbor's motion-activated spotlight that shines on me every time the wind blows. That made it less than ideal, but it didn't hurt the attempt too much.
All right, well, that's it. I swear that thing showed up like 30 seconds early.
Now this is what I initially set out to get. The classic configuration with solar panels clearly visible along with the central mast and all of the individual station sections. And as a special bonus in this pass, I actually got to see the Boeing Starliner capsule that's currently stranded up there. It's that little capsule on the upper left in these last few shots. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to see it, but that was definitely something I was hoping to accidentally catch before they sent it back to Earth. So here's the progress I made over the last 3 months. It was a fun journey, and I'll keep trying to get better at this. I'll try for some darker skies and some clearer nights and see if that helps. The misstep proved to be a really good tool for this job, and I plan to continue to use it. If I get anything better, I will share it on this channel. So thanks for going on this adventure with me, and like and subscribe.